You have just tapped into the Christian Life Coach Collective, and I'm your host, Laura Malone. I'm here to equip and encourage coaches in skills, business, personal life, and faith. I believe you're already 100% worthy and capable, and you're called for such a time as this. So let's get you walking it out with courage and confidence so you can be an amazing coach who sees transformation and great results in both your life and the lives around you. Let's get started. Happy December, coaches. Very exciting. I don't know if you have listened to the Storymaker show. It's my other podcast specifically focused on identity, purpose, belonging, faith, self-leadership, leading other people, all the things. I bring on other women who talk about what they've done and what it looks like to find true identity and purpose and belonging in their own lives. And I like them to share their lives and what they're doing and who God is in their lives so they can be a model of what is possible to you. Check that out, definitely. I would love for you to listen and share it. It's not geared towards coaching and business as much as it is your personal life. But if you're a coach, I think you could definitely listen to it and take concepts and threads and weave it into your own coaching and content and so forth. So I hope that's a blessing to you. But we've been talking over there on that podcast. I have been looking at a lot of topics that I get really excited about. And yesterday I started a Christmas presents series. And I mean Christmas present as in like God's presents, but it's a little bit of a play on the word, obviously, like presents and gifts. But we started talking about a word a word that is Shema, and it's Hebrew for hear and respond. It's like be attentive and take action. And it comes from Deuteronomy and Moses and the story of how Moses hears and responds to God and how God hears and responds to Moses. And I believe that Shema, it is a method of hearing in a way that it inspires transformation. It inspires an emotion, action, and results that cultivate a legacy that we desire to create in our own lives, but also that we want to create for our clients. So I'm thinking about that as I dive into recognizing breakthroughs in our clients' lives in this episode. And I'm kind of weaving them together a little bit because this study of Shema, it's been on my heart. I'm looking at it through my own life, my own relationship with God, my relationship with others. Do I not just as a coach and a friend, like not just be an active listener, but be active after I've listened? And I think in coaching, we talk a lot about being active listeners and great question askers. And this is so super foundational, not just in coaching, but to every relationship we have in life. Being curious and being creative and speaking with wisdom. I think that when we tie this together with not just actively listening, but hearing and then acting upon what we've heard, it's really powerful. And when we can teach that to our clients and we teach them how to hear the voice of God, how to hear what love is speaking to them, then we can also teach them how to take action based on what they have heard. And that leads to the type of breakthrough and transformation that is so dynamic. I know that when I hear God and I take action based on what I've heard, it changes. Well, it just really changes everything. It changes the kind of breakthrough I get. But in the context of client work, breakthroughs don't always look like a burning bush. Maybe that's a new tongue twister. Breakthroughs aren't always burning bushes. Breakthroughs aren't always burning bushes. Breakthroughs aren't always burning bushes. I can say it if I say it really slow. Sometimes it's not this big, ugly cry a client has, or this huge, oh my gosh, I've never seen that in my life before, or I never knew this. Wow. Sometimes you just watch a client breathe, like take a deep breath for the first time in a long time, or you see their shoulders stop being earrings. They come away from their ears. You see them smile for the first time in a couple of sessions, or you hear them say something like, I just never saw that. I never thought of it that way. Right? And I just recently had a moment where I was reading what a client said, and she was like, I just got that right now. As she's answering a question inside of our client document, homework in between sessions or something like that, and then she's answering it and she's processing and taking the time to do the real work, the hard stuff. And she literally just stops and says, okay, I never really thought of it that way until just right now. And I think that's so beautiful. At the same time, I was having a conversation over Voxer with a different client, and we're talking about her first client session that she's having later today. And I'm like, I'm praying for you. And like, just remember, you don't have to have all the answers, and just get the focus that the client, like just walking her through, encouraging her, reminding her, right? And being support for her, not in session, but over Voxer. We do emails, things like that, where we can just be there and serving and showing up. And I, at the same time, was working on what am I talk about in this episode for tomorrow? The glory and the joy of all of that, and seeing the breakthroughs that my clients are getting. They're not always this massive, again, big, ugly cry, burning bush experience that they're having. A lot of times it's just simple, right? It's a little shift, and we have to recognize those subtle moments, because it's really important to pay attention to the shift happening right in front of them. They might not understand what they're experiencing is really major. If it doesn't have this big attached emotion, maybe that's what they're expecting. And maybe that's what you've been expecting. But most of the time, a breakthrough and transformation at the beginning of the work, a lot of times it's a little bit more like, I would say, fragile. Sometimes those breakthroughs are just small cracks in the wall that's been built, right? It's, if you ignore it, if you don't mark the moment, say this is a milestone, if you don't help to reinforce the change that is occurring and you're ignoring it, then the client's brain might not see it and might end up defaulting back to the old narrative. So if you can help see it, and then you name it, help them recognize it, you can help kind of like lock it into their brain. You can help that new neuro pathway start to form, because that's the point of you being there, is you're a guide and you are helping them see the shift. So when you see these little moments, don't move on. Don't fill the space with more words because you don't want the silence, right? Pause, give it a second. Have just a clock tick and name what you just noticed. And you don't even have to name it, like give it a label. You don't have to define it. Let them do that. But you could just say like, hey, I think something just moved in your soul. I think a brick was pushed a little to the side. Did you feel that? You don't have to say, you know what? I think you just understood that the core root of your foundational abandonment issue is X, Y, and Z. You don't have to do that. You can just recognize something shifted. Did you feel the shift? And that will help the client register this internal thing that happened instead of racing past it or thinking it didn't matter enough to be pointed out. You're actually signaling to them what just happened matters. So let's stop and take a second and slow down and then get anchored in what happened. It's like, I don't remember exactly where it is in the Bible. Like they cross over the waters and they get to the other side and they start stacking. They have stones of remembrance. It's like a man from each tribe of Judah, like each of the tribes sets a stone of remembrance. It's saying this happened. And you can even do something like that with your clients and encourage them. Why don't you just grab a pack of stones, pull some rocks out of your yard, or buy some stones. Like I have these white stones that we do the identity shift kind of like exercise with. And I give them away to face-to-face clients. I give them out at like conferences and things like that. And they're white stones. And we take a marker and we just write like what God's identity, what he says our identity is. But there's other things that we do. We can actually take these stones and write on them, this was a mile marker. This is a stone of remembrance. This is a promise God gave me. This is an answered prayer. It's stones of remembrance, not just for generations, but for me right now to remember what is being done. You can have them write it down, just even speaking it out, right? Breakthrough is not always about like big emotion. It's really about becoming aware. And emotion might happen with that. I'm so sorry. I feel like my words are really jumbled up. I'm going to take a drink of coffee. Maybe I'm dehydrated. Maybe I need a glass of water too. I feel like all of my words as I'm talking are blah, 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 blah. Sometimes this happens in a client session. I'm just like, I'm sorry. I have no control over my lips, my tongue today, my brain. What were we talking about? We were talking about emotion might accompany the awareness. But it's the awareness that brings the transformation, not the emotion necessarily, right? So once they see the circumstances, the situation, the facts, even their paradigm, once they start seeing differently and their perspective shifts, they can start living differently, right? Because they feel differently and they take different action. So the paradigm adjusts first, the feeling follows, and then the action they're taking will change. And that's going to bring the transformation and the results they're looking for. So if they seem unsure, summarize that shift that you're pointing out or that they pull up in very simple language, right? You came in believing that you had no choice in this matter. This thing you wanted to get focus on coaching on. You started out in the session believing you had no choice. Now you see one very clear thing you can do. That's huge. And you're not like exaggerating. You're just orienting them to the moment and to the shift. You're helping their brain and their nervous system actually locate the progress they just made on the map. Because remember, you're helping them go from point A to point B. So you're helping them find out, like, this is where I am on the route that I've chosen to go from point A to point B. Awesome. And maybe if they, minimize it or it doesn't feel like much to them, you can just bring it back to focus. Like, what you just said is different from where we started at the beginning of the session. So let's just take a moment, like, give it a second, sit with that. And you're teaching them, how to like notice themselves. Most people just keep going. Most people don't celebrate little shifts. Most people don't spend any time being mindful, becoming aware, and then with that awareness, give themselves a little pat on the back. Good job, you. Go look in the mirror. Wow, look at you. Made a shift. It's internal, and that oftentimes doesn't get validated by ourselves to ourselves. We don't validate the intangible, unseen reality of what is really shifting. We think that becoming mindful about what we're eating or drinking and starting to make better decisions and not buffering with food, we think that doesn't matter as much as seeing the scale, say 5 or 10 pounds less than it did. But the only way the scale changes is by this internal scale changing first, and not just changing, but being celebrated for changing so that it can be consistent in changing so that the scale on the floor actually shifts, right? Most people aren't looking at that. They want to see instant gratification. They want microwaved results. But I'm going to tell you that my daughter microwaved a chicken pot pie today. Then I put a very little bit of coffee back in the microwave. I'm promised that this inch of coffee that I just wanted a little bit of reheat on, it tastes like chicken pot pie now from the microwave. Microwave results do not taste like something that's homemade. Something cooked in the microwave, it's actually, if you think of it, like it's being changed. Like the DNA of that chicken pot pie, it changes in the microwave because of what must happen to it in order for it to go from frozen to steaming hot in a short period of time. It is never going to taste like the chicken pot pie my grandma made with fresh vegetables and a hand-rolled pie crust, right? It's just not. Even the chicken was different back when grandma made it. So when we want microwave results and we don't value the internal, unseen intangibles that are really legacy-oriented, we rob ourselves. So you as a coach need to, one, recognize that, and number two, you need to bring it up and teach it to your clients because it's so powerful. So yeah, teach them how to notice and not dismiss what's going on inside, and then affirm the progress. Remember and remind them we're not going after perfection because that's what keeps them stuck. Practice makes progress. Practice never makes perfect. It only makes progress. And it keeps them actually moving and growing and shifting. So every new thought that they have and every new thought you give them space to have, and every new thought you introduce to them is really a doorway to freedom. I think you can look at it this way, like every shift is like a seed, right? And you're helping them to plant the seed. And what do seeds do? Or what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to develop. They're supposed to grow, turn into something else. But you have to pay attention to them. They need to be nurtured. They need you to be aware of them. Like they need to be noticed. And then you need to know what they are. You need to know, like name them, give them definition, like identity. And you need to nurture it. So you got to take care of it in order for it to actually grow. And that's the point of coaching, is that we help people see the seeds that are happening in their lives. Sometimes things have to die. The seed dies, right? And then in order for something to grow. And we just coach them through that in that process. So we're helping them to notice something, to name it, and to nurture it. So the breakthrough that you get in a session, once you see it, doesn't mean like the work is over, right? It's not the end of the session. It's not the end of the work. It's really just the beginning of a way that your client now looks at things, sees themselves, a new way of thinking. And that's not about like overnight change. So this one little internal shift that they experience, it starts reshaping how they show up, how they think and feel and what they do. And when they have a new perspective and they see differently, they become different people without being forced to become different, right? Without being like, there's no control involved. So internally, the ecosystem starts shifting. And then their external ecosystem starts reflecting what shifted on the inside. And that might look like, a client just pausing and knowing how to do some breath work or grounding or focus or prayer before they react in situations like maybe you're working on them having confidence at work or having boundaries in a relationship. And when they get triggered, they react negatively and they don't like the results they're getting, right? So maybe you're helping them to pause before they react and notice what kind of thought they're having, what they're making this mean, instead of being led by just random thoughts that they think on default. They get really intentional about what they think in that situation. They get honest with themselves and with God and with other people instead of like shutting down and self-protecting or withdrawing. And it's the moment they stop defaulting to old patterns, they start kind of living their life from like a truthful place rather than that false self. So sometimes it's small, like they just speak up in a conversation like at work that they might not have, maybe they wouldn't have normally raised their voice. Maybe they wouldn't have said something. Maybe they would have avoided a conversation. And sometimes it's major, like they set a boundary and they said no to somebody when they never believed before that they had permission to set that boundary or say no. And maybe that's major for them. They've never done that. They never knew they had permission to do that. I had a client who said, I never knew I had permission to speak up. I never knew I had permission to say no in my marriage because that was not true in my childhood and it wasn't true in my parents' marriage. So I just didn't know. Thank you for helping me to know I can. But then it created now she's got to figure out how to start being the person who sets boundaries and says no when it's healthy. So this new way of being for your clients, it's slow and steady, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be this fast microwave movement, right? They're just renewing their minds, and their mind is actually starting to catch up with what God has probably been speaking to them for a long time. They're learning self-trust, they're learning to trust God, and they're learning that transformation, it happens to that seed starts creating roots. And the roots have to be there before it becomes this external reality, which most people want to again, skip the root growth, skip the strong trunk, and they just want the fruit, right? But you have to have roots to get fruits. So as a coach, this is what you're looking for, right? It's not perfection or performance. It's not emotional, burning bush fireworks experience. You're looking for the moment when they shift from surviving to not surviving to thriving, right? We don't magically go from surviving to thriving. We go from survival to awareness we've been surviving. We go from survival to awareness, we're not thriving. We start choosing. We start getting clarity. We start having little internal ecosystem shifts. It's the work of the greenhouse. It is the shifting, the internal work must happen for the confusion to dissipate, right? To start making choices and commitments from a place of personal responsibility. We go from I can't to I might. I could. It's possible. We go from I'm stuck to I have options. There are other ways to get unstuck than what I thought, right? So our job is to help point out the shift, to pause and honor that shift, give it space, and then we help them walk it out. We remind them in other sessions, remember that shift. Remember your paradigm started shifting. You started having new thoughts. Let's not forget that. So a new way of being becomes the new way of doing, which becomes different results new results, and that ends up becoming this legacy that they desire to create. That's why anchoring in the moment matters. It's why we've got to pay attention to the breakthroughs, big or small. Notice them, name them, and then nurture them and teach our clients how to do that for themselves. So we're working on rearranging the future around a new truth today. So my challenge for you this week is that after your next session, conversation, whatever, write down a sentence or two, something that captures any kind of breakthrough that your client had. Not like remember, this doesn't have to be, nobody's reading this. There's no police, there's no professor, and I'm not expecting, I just want you to actually pay attention and be able to put it into one sentence. I saw my client's eyes light up. I heard my client say, I never thought of it that way. Or any version of that for themselves, right? Maybe you're not having a client this week. So, okay, your daughter, your friend, your spouse, anybody in front of you. Anytime, start learning how to recognize breakthrough and shift and clarity in somebody's face, body language, the words that they say, and then reflect on how could you help that person notice it, name it, and then nurture it, right? And just pray this: God, open my eyes to see the subtle shifts that you're making and help me notice and name and nurture those moments so that the truth can start taking root. Thank you for every glimpse of transformation you allow me to witness. Bless my clients. All right. I love breakthrough, and I love the Shema. Hear and respond to God. And I bless you to get your own breakthrough and for the seeds of what God is doing in your life to be noticed and named and nurtured. And I didn't say that because they all started with an N. I think that just actually, they all apply. So I hope that December is amazing for you. I hope that you find the truth of who God says you are, and that is the greatest gift that you get in this holiday season, is that you get big T truth and you hear the God of love, the God who is love, speak to you about who you truly are. And make sure that you're checking out the show notes. If you want to work with me next year, things are shifting, spots are opening. I'm going to create some new things. And yeah, I'd love to work with you. So you can book a session and we can actually work through things and get you some new results, create a new legacy. I don't want you to be in the same place next year in your life or your business as you are right now. There is potential for you to grow. There is potential and possibility of your own breakthrough. And if you want a friend and a coach to walk with you who gets it, then I want to be that person for you. Check the show notes, go to sterlingandstonementoring.com, and we're going to talk to you next week when we're going to discuss how to end sessions really well. All right, have a great day. Love ya. Thanks for listening. For more coaching resources and to learn how to work with me, head to sterlingandstonementoring.com or click the link in the show notes. Remember, walk boldly in your calling, and I'll talk to you next time.